Stephen Hudspeth served in the Gulf War in the early 1990s with a unit from the North Carolina National Guard.
They were burning food, leftover scraps. They were burning anything, that like old tires.
While he served, he was exposed to burn pits, which were used to get rid of trash created by his unit.
I mean, you name it, they were setting it on fire.
Anything you'd throw away was burnt.
He eventually came home, and years later, he says he suffers from many of the side effects health experts say could be caused by exposure to burn pits. The VA has a registry for veterans like Hudspeth, who served in the Gulf War, or more recently, theaters in the global war on terror, who may have been exposed to the pits. But for Hudspeth, there's just one problem. He says he doesn't use the computer, and he can't find anyone to help him sign up for the online registry.
I said, well, online's okay, but I don't do online. I don't have a computer, and I don't have a password, and I don't have any of that.
Hudspeth says he first asked someone at the Charlotte VA clinic to help him register.
They said, no, we don't do them. You got to go to the veteran service officers in your county. So I've called up there, but I haven't got a response yet.
We called the veteran service office in the county where he lived. They confirmed that they don't help veterans sign up for the burn pit registry either. Hudspeth said he's also called his congressman's office, who also said they couldn't help him. So now he's not sure where to go.
Kind of makes you a little bit of, afraid that maybe you've been exposed and you'd like them to know, and
then you just want some help.
Just some help.
But can't find anyone to help you.
No, I ain't found anybody yet.
Reporting in Charlotte, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
Well, tonight, a local veteran has gotten the help that he's earned after calling WBTV to cut through red tape at the VA. Our reporter Nick Oxner has an update to his investigation.
Stephen Hudspeth called us in February, frustrated that he couldn't get anyone to help him sign up for the burn pit registry through the VA. Hudspeth was entitled to be on the registry after being exposed to burn pits during his time serving in Iraq during the Gulf War. The federal government keeps a registry of veterans exposed to similar pits because the practice is now known to be the cause of some severe health problems. But when we talked with Hudspeth in February, he was stumped. The only way you can sign up for the registry is online, and he doesn't have a computer. And he said no one at the VA would help him either.
Kind of makes you a little bit of, afraid that maybe you've been exposed and you'd like them to know, and
then you just want some help.
Just some help.
But can't find anyone to help you.
No, I ain't found anybody yet.
Now, we heard from Hudspeth last week, who said after our story aired, he was contacted immediately by someone at the VA. They set up an appointment for him to be screened by a doctor. He's now on the burn pit registry and feels certain that his future health concerns that could be prompted by these burn pits will be adequately addressed by the VA. Now, reporting in the newsroom, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
New tonight, you want your parents to be treated well when they're living in a nursing home, and that's why a failing rating at a local VA nursing home is so upsetting.
The Salisbury facility, one of the worst in the country, scoring just 1 star out of 5. It is in the bottom 10% of all facilities nationwide. Investigative reporter Nick Oxner went to Salisbury to ask leaders what they're doing to improve.
You see guys gathered outside almost like the Andy Griffith Show.
This is what it looks like inside the community living center operated by the Salisbury VA. It looks more like a fancy hotel than a place for a nursing home, hospice, and rehab patients. Something the folks in charge of are proud of. But ratings released by the VA this week show the care provided at the facility is lacking.
Any director would be concerned if their facility shows up in this data as a 1 star.
What would you say to veterans and their families who hear this and should rightfully be concerned by the numbers that they see on the page?
That even though the data says we're a 1 star facility, I still think we provide excellent care. Do we have opportunities for improvement? Absolutely we do.
Joseph Vaughn is the director of the Salisbury VA Medical Center. He says the new ratings aren't acceptable. Specifically, his facility got 1 star overall in survey ratings and in quality. By comparison, the Asheville Community Living Center got 2 stars overall, and the Dorn VA facility in Columbia, South Carolina received 3.
There's definitely areas we need to work in. We've identified those areas, and we're going to keep pressing them until we get them straight.
What's your timeline on getting this?
So my plan is by the next iteration, within 1 quarter of this coming out, that we will have already improved to a bare minimum 2 star, hopefully 3 star. And then within the next 6 months, I would expect us to be well on our way to being back in the 4- and 5-star range.
Reporting in Salisbury, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
It's not been uncommon over the last few weeks to see National Guard military vehicles driving up and down streets like this one in Pollocksville near New Bern. Take a look. Right now, this street lined with debris. Last week, these houses were underwater. And that's why the governor activates the National Guard to help respond to natural disasters like Hurricane Florence. They have tall, heavy vehicles equipped to handle high water, and they're capable of helping with immediate disaster response. This past spring, a report by the North Carolina State Auditor found roughly 1,200 guardsmen had been paid too much money for the response to Hurricane Matthew in October 2016. The auditor found the overpayment amounted to more than $30,000. Earlier this month, the North Carolina Department of Public Safety sent letters like this one to those who received the overpayments, requiring the money be paid by November 1st. In a statement, a DPS spokeswoman says the overpayment was the result of a coding error. And even though the error was on the part of clerical staff at the Department of Public Safety, the guardsmen have to repay the money because of a state law that says the state cannot forgive any overpayment. But so far, that spokeswoman for DPS has yet to answer my question of whether or not any guardsmen impacted by the overpayments from Matthew have been activated to respond to Hurricane Florence, and if so, if that November 1st deadline will be pushed back. We'll keep asking. For now, reporting in Pollocksville, Nick Oxner. Guys, back to you.
WBTV continues to cut through red tape at the VA, this time for a man who called us for help after his disability check stopped showing up.
Our investigative reporter Nick Oxner has more on what he did to help.
May 1st, I didn't receive a check.
Calvin Noble served in the first Iraq War, where he was medically discharged after coming down with Persian Gulf syndrome. He's supposed to get a disability check every month, but that didn't happen this past May.
They told me it was their fault, but they never replaced the check, and it took them 2 to 3 months to replace it.
Records provided by the VA show the payment went to the wrong checking account. The VA says it got Noble's correct information in late April, but they still didn't send the payment.
I called them every day. They kept giving me the runaround. Every day I would call them. They would give me a different runaround.
Noble says the missing money caused him to ask relatives for help paying his rent and other financial strain.
I got tired of it. I told them I was going to contact WBTV, and they told me, hold up, don't do that. And I said, too late, I already did, and that's the only way I got results.
We first emailed the VA asking about Noble's missing check on August 6th. VA records show his missing check was deposited just 4 days later, on the 10th.
They didn't replace it until I got in contact with WBTV.
In an email, a VA spokeswoman said the department wants to ensure veterans receive the benefits they're entitled to and regrets any frustrations Noble experienced. But Noble says it took calling WBTV to get the VA to help him.
If I wouldn't have went to you all, they probably wouldn't have gave my check till this month. Or I'd probably be still waiting.
Reporting in Charlotte, Nick Oxner, WBTV, on your side.
All right, Nick, thank you. Leadership at the Salisbury VA Medical Center has not taken the recommended action against 2 doctors involved in a case of continued sexual harassment against a female employee. That is according to internal documents obtained by WBTV. They paint a picture of what one insider says is a culture of mishandling harassment complaints. Investigative reporter Nick Oxner has found that history of inaction has left taxpayers on the hook for millions in settlements between the VA and employees. Nick joins us now live.
Yeah, Paul, an employee at the Salisbury VA reported being sexually harassed by her boss, the assistant chief of staff, last year. A federal hearing officer found the complaints to be true. But instead of stopping the harassment, the hearing officer found local VA leadership let it continue. The VA spent more than $5 million last year to settle employee discrimination complaints, a figure that doesn't include money paid to settle other types of complaints for whistleblower retaliation or benefit disputes.
The cash register is continuing to ring up dollars, public funds that are going to be paid out to help the victim. And that's the waste of taxpayer funds.
Roger French worked in human resources for the VA for nearly 4 decades. Now he helps VA employees file complaints to expose wrongdoing. Are veterans being well served by this culture?
No, not at all. Not at all. This is criminal because veterans are being denied what they're owed.
French brought us information about a case at the Salisbury VA Medical Center, where last year an employee reported being sexually harassed by her boss, the Associate Chief of Staff, Dr. Parag Dalsanya. According to documents obtained and reviewed by WBTV, the harassment included questions and comments about the woman's sex life and continued over a period of time. The woman reported the harassment to the hospital's Chief of Staff, Dr. Sabaro Pemaraju, documents show, but the harassment continued.
The immediate supervisor should have taken the action to discipline, in this case remove, for the egregious comments and conduct.
This summer, a VA hearing officer found Pamaraju's failure to take action on the complaints against Dalsanya exposed the female employee to continued abuse and recommended Dalsanya be fired and Pamaraju be removed from a supervisory position. But that didn't happen. Instead, emails reviewed by WBTV between Joseph Vaughn, the director of the Salisbury VA, and his boss, VISN 6 Director Deanne Seekins, shows leadership got advice from lawyers on ways to avoid taking any action beyond the written reprimand Dalsanya had already gotten. Nothing happened to Pamaraju.
You have an individual who's been sexually harassed, egregiously sexually harassed, nothing done to the individual that did the harassment by the leadership. And it's been ignored, and it continues to be ignored.
Seekins, Vaughn, and VA leadership in Washington all refused requests for an on-camera interview, but did send a statement saying in part, quote, the responsible employee was disciplined. But the statement didn't address the finding by the VA hearing officer that the discipline against Dalsanya wasn't appropriate and should have been more severe, and said nothing about why Hospital Director Joseph Vaughn and Regional Director Deanne Seekins allowed Pamaraju to stay on as Chief of Staff, even after the hearing officer recommended he be removed.
They should be removed. Both of them should be removed, and leadership should be put in there because they're abusing their authority.
Welcome to the new VA.
French, the veteran VA Human Resources Director, says this case will likely end up another instance where taxpayers and veterans have to pay.
Billions and billions of dollars put into the budget to provide patient care is being pulled out of the budget to pay for EEO and whistleblower abuses.
Now, I also reached out to both Drs. Dalsanya and Pamaraju, asked if they want any comment of their own for this story. Neither of them responded to the request. You can read more details about the harassment and this specific complaint online right now at WBTV.com.
I suspect we'll hear more about this before it's over, Nick. Thank you very much.
Last week, we exposed details of a sexual harassment complaint filed against a doctor at the Salisbury VA named Parag Dalsanya, who later a VA hearing officer determined wasn't properly disciplined by his boss, the Chief of Staff, Dr. Sabaro Pemaraju. Earlier this year, an EEO hearing officer at the VA found Pamaraju only issued Dalsanya a reprimand after a female colleague at the hospital reported being sexually harassed. The hearing officer also found Pamaraju failed to take effective action to stop the harassment. As a result, the hearing officer said Dalsanya should be fired and Pamaraju should be removed from any supervisory position within the VA. But documents obtained and reviewed by WBTV show that didn't happen. And leaders at the Salisbury VA and in the VA's regional office got advice from VA lawyers on ways to justify keeping both men in their jobs. But today, WBTV has learned that following our story last week, both Dalsanya and Pamaraju have been moved to non-supervisory positions. The move comes after Salisbury VA Director Joseph Vaughn sent an email to all staff last week telling them to ignore our investigation and to focus only on positive news about the VA. Today, through a spokesman, Vaughn said he couldn't discuss ongoing personnel actions, but issued a statement saying, in part, quote, I take all forms of harassment very seriously, and I expect my employees to do the same. It is important to me for our veterans and staff to know that every allegation of harassment presented to our management team is thoroughly assessed through various means of investigative tools, and if founded, discipline is rendered. Now, VA leaders still have yet to answer our questions about why this action wasn't taken prior to our story. Both Drs. Dalsanya and Pamaraju have declined to comment on this ongoing investigation. For now, reporting in the newsroom, Nick Oxner, back to you.